So in this segment, we're going to be discussing some good news, which is the Conservative Party taking an absolute beating at the local elections, losing 674 councillors. Mad thing. Absolutely mad thing. This is stupendous news. This is amazing. Like back to back L's for them. You know, you've got people inside the party talking about potential extinction of the party. They are lost, rudderless. Their leader, complete joke. To be honest with you, I think they must be real upset that Mordaunt's gone, because the amount of talent they have, it was already bad, and now it's even worse. It's even worse. Like this is, yeah, like we're talking relegation levels of quality in the team here. So this is Justine Greening talking about some of the issues with the party.
To get the Conservative Party back on track, in your view, what does she need to do? And listening to her this morning, do you think she understands what's going on?
I think the party needs a sense of purpose again. People need to know what it stands for, and that then informs the policy agenda. For me, it's always been obvious the party should stand for equality of opportunity, social mobility. The policy agenda should flow from that, whether it's within government, whether it's what...
The problem is that they didn't do that for 15 years. You know, under David Cameron, that didn't happen. This is when she was a minister. You know, equality of opportunity was not there. You know, social mobility was non-existent.
Businesses who have opportunities do with them, how they reach them to communities that need them. It's got to be really around how we can develop the talent that Britain's already got. I heard Kemi talk about people having more children twice. We've got a lot of children. Let's develop the ones we've got in our schools. Let's look at how we can make sure that those gaps don't open up in the education system, as they all...
It's just hilarious, given that these are the people who cut the education system.
Already do. There are some really practical questions facing the Conservative Party, but I think more fundamental is, what is the point of the Conservative Party now? And if we can't find an answer to that, then we shouldn't assume things won't continue to get worse.
And that's their problem. Apart from trans issues, they've got nothing. This is their leader.
Nigel Farage's ideas. Maybe they like the sound of this. And I come back to your suggestion that this is a protest vote. If you rely on calling it a protest vote, the implication is you just think it will go away. You know,
I certainly do not believe that. But look at the numbers.
You don't think this will go away?
This was 30%. These things, we look at what's happening all across the world. You talked about France. Look at what's happened in Canada, where a Conservative leader of the opposition, 23 points ahead when I met him in December, lost his seat this week.
The thing is, with these guys, yeah, I think they're relatively unknowns. With Kemi Badenoch, like, the public are generally quite familiar with her, and the fact that her party just lost last year, using this argument of polls can change dramatically, it's just pure cope, honestly.
Something happened in Australia yesterday.
So could that happen to you?
So anything can happen. That is why we are not being complacent. You asked me what I think is happening. I've said I do think it is protest, but that doesn't mean we sit back. We are going to come out fighting. We are going to come out with the policies that people want to see. But what we are not going to do is rush out and tell the public things that are not true just so we can win votes. It's
literally what you guys do all the time.
Not about winning elections. This is about fixing our country. Yes, of course, you need to win elections to do that, but you also need a credible plan. We've seen what happens with Labour. You come in without a plan, just winning, and everything gets worse.
The thing is, they don't have literally, like, this person, Justine Greening, saying they need a message, they need a plan. Kemi Badenoch saying, yeah, we need a plan. It's like, that's your job as leader of the party to come up with that.
1998, after the Labour landslide then, the Conservatives actually gained councillors, and by some measures, this is the worst local election results for your party ever. You said Reform's a protest vote. You've also said the Lib Dems are a protest vote, and basically it's going to take time. Isn't it a bit complacent?
People said that about the SNP. They were just a protest vote. It's a long old protest going on in Scotland.
Just to say, I need a bit longer, it's going to be tricky. Have you got time to do that?
So in 1998, they were not having elections after an unprecedented high. The elections we had 4 years ago, we did better than we'd ever done before. Even in good times, we would have had a worse result. And I am sorry to all of those councillors who've lost their seat.
But the point here is that the party's performance has got worse on your watch.
If I could finish the first question. 4 years ago, Keir Starmer had his worst result. He is Prime Minister now, with a landslide majority. We live in politically volatile times. And
the thing, again, this is cope, because the thing is, we know who you are. We know what policies you stand on. They weren't popular. They're not good. If you look at, with Reform, they are at least semi-new. They have different ideas. Farage hasn't been Prime Minister. That's why people are rallying around him. Like, this idea is just a simple protest vote is not true. People don't like you. That's the problem. People don't like your front bench. People don't like your party at all. There's a reason why you're very unpopular.
What I've been saying is that we are going to take the slow and steady way. There will be bumps along, but we can do this, and we will do it in 4 years, not 18 years, 14 years, 13 years, like previous oppositions.
It's very rare parties one and done. So, the idea that she'll get this done in the next few years is laughable. She'll be lucky to win in the Labour's third election.
Point here is that since you have been in charge, the party's performance both in the national opinion polls and then on Thursday with real life votes, the party's gone down on your watch. And if you look at other parties, other places in Europe, whether it's France, Italy, Poland, to name just 3 of them, the traditional right-wing party in those countries has been usurped. They've been replaced by others coming along. So are you sure?
Because they're not right-wing enough. The Conservatives are going to find out they are not kind of moderate enough for moderate voters and moderate Conservatives. They're going to get eaten by the Lib Dems. And they're not right-wing enough for the Reform Party. This is their crisis point, which is they're going to have a party on their right eating away at that vote.
That's not going to happen to you.
Yes, and that is because we are working on a plan. When I came in,
Lady, you've been in charge for months. How have you not come up with a plan? Unless they're doing the thing that Labour tried to do where they had nothing for forever and they just lucked their ways to victory, which is not going to work for her this time round.
Said it was likely to get worse before it got better. And protest is in the air. What we had was Labour saying, all we need to do is get rid of the Conservatives and everything will be better. Things got worse. Now we have Reform saying, all we need to do is get rid of the Conservatives and Labour and everything will be better. I suspect things will get worse. But protest is in the air. Yesterday, I had a meeting with councillors in Hertfordshire, some who won and also candidates who lost. And what they said on the doorstep was that people were frustrated with the previous government. I was not leading the previous government. We are going down.
You are a very large part of it. You were a minister in that government for a while.
A new
path, you were in the
yes,
previous government.
They voted for me because of my record in government. I'm one of the people who was trying to fix the things that went wrong.
Because you're in a Tory safe seat. That's why people voted for you.
But what they said on the doorsteps, that immigration is still an issue. We try to fix structural problems in our society, aging society, people living longer, not enough people having children. We try to fix all this with immigration. That has not worked. Immigration has now become a problem. We need...
Immigration's become a problem because you've made it into an issue with the lack of house building and social facilities and things like that.
There are people in Parliament who served in government, for example, and did nothing when they were in a position of power to actually...
Kemi Badenoch was Women's and Equalities Minister. What did she do about things like grooming gangs? What did she do about violence against women? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They made the situations worse by hollowing up police and the judicial system.
Implement an inquiry and act on it. They were literally in positions of power in the Home Office and in government departments. Did nothing. Now out of government and are suddenly saying, why is nothing being done? Now it's a Labour government. Whereas if they were serious about this and they cared a few years ago, they could have done everything that they are now demanding be done when they themselves had their hands firmly on the levers of power. And there are others outside Parliament, I would say too, who have suddenly leapt on this issue, having shown no interest at all.
This is the equivalent of Farage talking about how farming is such a big deal, despite the fact that he was on the fisheries committees in the EU.
The absolute shame that it should, Chris, you're right, bring to this country for many, many years, who have now suddenly seen it as an opportunity.
It's crazy work. And the final one on this, which is the Conservatives, like, you guys were in power. And this is the point that a lot of people are going to make to them. And this is the thing that's going to give Reform a much easier time, because the Conservatives aren't going to be a good option for people.
Say about Reform at least, and I hope you'd agree with this, that you would probably have more trust in Nigel Farage sorting out our immigration crisis than Keir Starmer or, indeed, Kemi Badenoch, because they've both represented successive governments that have allowed immigration, legal and illegal, to shoot up. And that was a Tory problem. Haven't you just been punished for the fact that you haven't controlled the borders?
We have, and we understand that, which is precisely why we are taking our time with policy development, but in the area of immigration, those were the very first things that we've already announced,
Why
changes
does
in
it
policy.
take much time?
Let me listen, because you've asked a perfectly fair question, because immigration dominated last year's election. And the reality is, from the conversations I've had on the doorstep, because I've been around the country as well, it dominated even these local elections. There's no doubt.
Which is dumb, because local elections aren't about bin collections, but it just show you how cooked the country is. Like, well, there again, people never understood what local elections are for anyways, but it does show you how cooked we are as a society, where this is the thing people obsess over the most, even at a local level.
Why do you need more time to work this problem out? You were in power for 14 years. There's now apparently a policy review where you might consider leaving the ECHR. You should have already decided that. I mean, it's been an issue now for several decades.
Camilla, the issue goes way beyond ECHR, and Kemi said if that is part of the solution, then we'll take that. But so is the issues around it.
And you should have decided that by now. Like, you had enough time to figure that stuff out.
Indefinite leave for remain. So is the processing. So is, and we've announced a cap on migration. But in answer to
You never implemented that. You guys said when you're in power you will get immigration down for tens of thousands. Now since 2010 there was never a year you achieved it.
question as well.
Have you? What is it?
Well, we've said that we will bring in a cap.
What
Camilla,
is it going to be?
A perfectly fair question, by the way. And we've said that we will announce the cap, but we can't announce it now.
Why?
Because you don't have a plan. That's the problem. You have nothing to stand on.
Can I just say this as well?
Why
You're
not
asking
just announce it?
Camilla, you're asking perfectly valid questions. Can you ask Nigel Farage the very questions you've just asked?
I always ask Nigel Farage and people from
he
Reform
announces
these questions.
things.
Well, they
but then
want
what's
net
the
zero.
plan?
They want net zero immigration, don't they? So they have made it very clear.
How?
Okay,
How will they
and I've
implement
asked them
then?
that, and I've said you'll have to have a
so if
carve
we've
out
got
for healthcare.
thousands of doctors and all these things,
But with
exactly.
respect,
So
Mr.
it's
Huddleston,
the
I'm
point.
asking you for your policies. You're talking
But
about
we're
a
in
migration
opposition.
cap.
I know.
What is it?
But we're in opposition now. We're
Do you
not
see
in
the problem?
government. I do see the problem.
Because anyone watching this
Yeah.
will go, well, he's not credible on immigration because he won't give
But
Camilla a figure.
why is Nigel Farage any more credible? Because he doesn't have a plan of how to do these
All right,
things.
I'll put a suggestion
they are
to
now,
you.
They are now going to have responsibility
Yes.
in local government, having made lots of promises. By the way, leaflet after leaflet
Right.
they put out in these elections said stop the boats.
Yes.
In
You don't
local
think they can?
elections. Well, as local.
Yeah, because you guys weaponize this to be an issue. Like, people are so stupid. They don't realise local elections are more about bin collections, local libraries and stuff like that.
Council, obviously not. I mean, do they not understand what the responsibility of local council is?
And, you know, that's your job to educate people. Like, you've honestly cooked this country so bad. And, you know, kind of final point on this was I want to discuss the Davey talking about holding reform to account.
Farage, though, interestingly, once said he took his inspiration from the Liberal Democrats with your local branches, local councils, local progress. If he's taken inspiration from you, doesn't sound like it, but I'll try my luck. Would you take any inspiration from him?
Listen, he clearly doesn't share our values. I don't share his. And, you know, I think what's going to happen now they've actually got to run councils, we will see what they do. You know, in the election, Nigel Farage said they should cut funding for special education needs and disabled children and young people. I think families across the country will be really worried by that. When polls closed, he said he wanted to ape Donald Trump and Elon Musk's policies in town halls. And, you know, look at some of the other policies. If he's really going to do what he says, presumably he's going to stop insulation programs that keep people's energy bills down and keep people's homes warm if he does what he says on climate change. So I think we'll hold him to account, you know, Laura, and I'm very confident that people will increasingly see that it's only the Liberal Democrats taking on this divisive populist politics. And I just urge your viewers to Google.
Okay, you don't need to hear the rest of that. But point being, it's like the Tories are going to get eaten on both sides here. Both one by Labour and the other, not one by Labour, one by the Lib Dems and the other by the Reform Party. And that's why they're looking at a potential extinction event. There's no way in really any direction for them to go. Their best hope is, you know, maybe they're the third biggest party in Westminster. That's about it. Depending on how the SNP do in the next general election, because Labour aren't going to do well up in Scotland again, I imagine. But yeah, overall, I think this is good news for, you know, the world, that we're looking at the end of one of the oldest, I think it's the oldest political party that, you know, in existence right now. And hopefully one day we can pick up their company for £1, and I'll probably do that just for the fun of it. But overall, they're in a lot of danger here, and I think they've got probably another charisma vacuum in Kemi Badenoch, who doesn't understand that she's in danger. It's the Ralph Wiggum meme. She's in big trouble here. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.